Hello, everybody. So my name is Neil Meekin of The Pool of Life, and joining me today is Annie Hoving, a systemic coach based in Spain, but originally from the Netherlands. And so today we're going to be in conversation around a number of different themes, but mainly about the work and what we do and our service and what we bring to the world. And it's a conversation that we've been wanting to have for a while, and it was felt that it'd be a good opportunity to do like a mini podcast and record the conversation and just share some of the things that we're seeing in the world and some of the current projects that we're working on. So I got to know Annie a few years ago. So we trained together in Ireland, training with Roisin Fallon and Family Constellations up in the north of Ireland. And we've remained friends and connected ever since. So I say hello to Annie. How are you?
Hey Neil, thanks. I'm really good. I'm really happy to do this together with you. Like you said, we've been wanting to do this for a while now, and I think it's work that's really close to our hearts, always evolving, and we are always growing. And yeah, it's really great to do something together as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've had many conversations over the last couple of years, and the conversations are always very rich. And for those that don't know Annie, and for listeners, that Annie's partner Milo is also a Family Constellations facilitator, and when I visited Annie when you both lived in Ireland, we had some really deep conversations. So it's lovely to see where this will go
Yeah,
here
that's great.
today.
Yeah,
So to start, I mean, just for the benefit of the listeners, Annie, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then I can share a bit more about me.
yeah. Thanks, Neil. Like I said, it's always growing and evolving in this work, and I think that's for us as people as well, and even in what I do and who I am. I call myself a systemic coach, a coach slash family constellation facilitator, working on deep emotional processes with people. And I do that in many ways. I do that one to one with people who work with me for longer periods of time to really go deep to see what is underneath their surface. And I feel extremely passionate about that since we started training in constellations. That is also how I see the world. Uh, I think everything comes back to who we are, what emotions we feel, what we're not feeling, and that tied back to how we've been brought up by our parents and how our parents have been brought up by their parents. And so we can go generations back, obviously, back to Adam and Eve. But yeah, especially in a family system, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, how that shapes you to be and how that sometimes burdens you and how difficult it can be in some situations in life. Um, and I support people through the process of feeling all their emotions, um, and especially that they know that there's no need to change. There's no need to be any different. There's no need to do any work on yourself, but to be and to be okay where you are. I think that's really missing in lots of the methods and lots of the emotional work that's out there. It's that you need to heal, you need to change, and I've been there myself as well.
Mm.
But from a true place in my core, I feel that's not true. People are good; they're perfect the way they are. They just need to see themselves like that. So that's why I don't help or push people. I support people through that journey. That's how I see myself. And yeah, I live in Spain. I live in the north of Spain in a city called Santander, um, with my partner, two kids, a dog, and I'm working on different collaborations at the moment, stemming from my training that I did with you and the year before that as well in family constellations, together with lots of coaching that I've done on emotional awareness, lots of courses, retreats in terms of biodecoding, looking at what emotions are present in your body and how do they manifest as maybe physical symptoms in your body, what emotions lay behind there. and lots of plant medicine that I've worked with, and integration of that as well. So I bring all of that together with a base in business and in with like one leg that I still had in the business world in the past 10 years. So combining all of those skills right now to fully step into supporting people in on their emotional journey.
Yeah, it's really interesting because again, we sort of share a similar. Even though I'm a little bit older than you, like my background's corporate. I was a banker for many years. I'm 46 now, but like in my all throughout my 30s, I was a banker. But like you worked at LinkedIn for quite a long time in
Yeah,
Dublin.
yeah, correct. Yeah, in the sales world. So I've always been in the sales and HR world, um, and that was just very exciting. It was a very exciting time, and I also felt that there is, even working in a big corporation and the interactions that you have, the manager that you work with, the peers in your group, things that come up that frustrate you, that make you feel sad, that make you doubt about your job, that make you chase another promotion, all those things, they all stem from your emotional body. And they all stem back to how you've been brought up by your parents.
100%.
So for me, it's such a beautiful way to bring those two together, that people who think that you need to go to a therapist or you need to go to a coach when there is like really something traumatic going on in your life, it's not true. It's so healthy to talk to someone about what is going on at work, or what confrontation you might be afraid of, or what imposter syndrome you have, to just name some of the basic things that we could work with. But what is beneath that? Um, what pattern do you see in your life, for example? How can we break those patterns? Did something happen to your parents and you're carrying that into your generation, and that's now playing out in your life one way or another? So to bring all those things together in business as well. Is that something that you're interested in as well?
From a business side of things,
Yeah.
it's interesting because my work over the last probably 10 years, more than 10 years now. It started really when I moved to New Zealand. So I lived in New Zealand for 7 years. I moved down there 2014, and I started getting involved in the world of innovation and innovation
Mhm.
management. And a lot of that was working with startups and tech companies. And I also got to work with like corporates doing corporate innovation. I've done work with HSBC and Shell. I've done government innovation, but I've got a particular interest in entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. Like now I'm obviously an entrepreneur myself, but I was seeing like a lot of patterns. Like I've ran what's called accelerator programs, and this is where we take groups of entrepreneurs, typically tech companies, but not exclusively tech companies, and we take them through a very intensive like 4 month process where we get a lot of intensive support, get some seed funding, etc. And I was seeing a pattern, and obviously that pattern is within me as well, but I was seeing it in others, and there was a consistent theme, and not in everybody, but in a lot of people I was seeing. And there's like there's trauma based behavioral patterns that I was able to sort of uncover through conversations around why they became entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
and two, what was driving the behavior. Because often you see a lot of burnout, high stress. Now it is intense building a business, building a startup, and you know that's almost like a default.
Yeah.
But I was seeing like there was maybe lack of boundaries, and saying yes
Mm.
without really understanding the consequence of saying yes. So I have this saying, like, what are you saying yes to? That means you're saying no to yourself.
Yeah.
And there was consequences for that. It's really interesting that you can almost like correlate it to the relationship with a father. So the
Yeah.
father's boundaries, structure, sovereignty, knowing who you are, and taking action in a healthy way. And there was correlation there, which I won't go into too much detail in, but that's a piece of a piece of work in an area that I'm really sort of diving into at the moment and doing some research. So in the innovation world, and a lot of people who may be entrepreneurs who read this, I'm doing a discovery work. And when you're thinking about building a product or a service, you do discovery interviews.
Mhm.
So it's like you're doing like scientific research. You've got a hypothesis, and then you're just interviewing. So I'm going through that process at the moment in that particular space. So So I can see how my old life, and still my current life a little bit, is informing, bringing in systemic and family constellations work, and the converging into one. So I'm just allowing that to unfold and see where that goes.
Cool. And shall we go one step back and talk a little bit more about family constellations and systemic work? Because I'm curious to hear what your takes on that. Like, if I were to ask you, what is family constellation, Neil? Explain to me, what is this work about? What would you say? What is
Yeah,
it for you?
I like to keep things. Thanks, Fanny. I like to keep things very, very simple. And so, family constellations or systemic constellations, and we can talk about maybe the difference between them. It's one and the same, really. Is it's a method and a process for me for bringing to light and bringing into conscious awareness hidden patterns, behaviors, traits, or even like a culture that's able to be mapped and brought into awareness to be seen, that may not have been seen before, because as human beings we have a lot of what we call psychological blind spots, and then by bringing an awareness to it, we're then able to see it, and then when we see it we can change it.
Yeah.
And then there's also another aspect to it where there's an emotional aspect. So you've used emotions quite a bit. Is that by observing something, it can move something within us in an unconscious way. And the benefit and the reason for doing that is for change and for transformation and to become more aware. And as Carl Jung talks about, is becoming an individuated self, so becoming more whole and all these different fragmented parts. So that's in a nutshell what it means to me. Obviously there's so much more to it, but for me that's what it's about. It's about bringing awareness to oneself and acting as a mirror through the constellation process. So I'll flip it to you, and you might have a different take on it. So what's your perspective on that?
Yeah. When I think about family constellations, the first thing that I see is a system, is a family system. So everyone in the world is part of a family system. You have your father and you have your mother. You possibly have your siblings, even siblings that have not been born or that are not there anymore. And that is your system. And that system exists because your parents had their parents and their system, and that just trickles down. And you are the way you are because of what your parents have been through, what your grandparents have been through, and that can be for the better. Obviously, you're like, wow, what a beautiful pair of blue eyes you got, and that singing voice, and the way that you love theater, and all those beautiful traits that are being passed down. And also the burdens and the trauma, because the moment that trauma is not resolved in one of the upper layers in your system, it might trickle down into your system. So people that I meet might be extremely anxious, or they might be so perfectionistic. But that's actually because that's what they've been taught by their parents, because they have been raised by parents who were or in the war, or they were in a very stressful situation having to migrate countries. And that affects the lives of people that I work with now. And the moment that you become aware of those patterns through a method like family constellations, where in the way that I work, we do specific visualizations, we do group work where people can represent people of your family in order to disentangle parts of that system. We can talk, even we can sit in silence, we can meditate, we can visualize, we can do rituals, whatever it is, in order for you to become more aware, to acknowledge whatever has happened in your family system and say, wow, I am the way I am because of my mother. And the moment that I see my mother clearly, and I can say, wow, I see, Mom, that this is the way you are because of what happened to you, I can release that pressure of myself and I can step into fully who I am. So in the where I feel I'm leaning towards a lot with my clients is finding your place in your family. So really saying, okay, I am the child and my mother is my mother, my grandparents are my grandparents, and that is their place. Like, I don't need to be a mother to my mother. I don't need to take care of my older siblings. I don't need to be there constantly for my parents because of what happened to them. So I can talk about this for hours. There's so many things I want to say, but just that system in itself, to recognize that you're part of that system and things come with being in the system, like the burdens and the beautiful things, recognizing that and feeling all the emotions around that. And from there on, stepping into your own life. That is what I want people to bring towards, or to help them see what's already there in the work of family constellations.
Yeah, thank you, Anne. That's a really lovely way that you built on my initial sort of simplified understanding of constellations. And it's, again, like you say, there's so many things that are coming up that like almost like a tree, it'll branch off into so many different
Yeah.
directions. Something that's come to my mind as you were talking is, our teacher in Ireland, Roisin Fallon, and she will have got it from somewhere else, but talks around like, and I use this myself when I'm delivering workshops, is widening the lens
Yeah.
on our perception of our family system, because as part of our family system, the culture of our family that goes back generations, we have these stories, and there's our individual story, but our sister or our brother or our uncle or our grandparents, I'll have a different story around the same event that might have happened within the family system.
Yeah.
And so we respond to life from that place. Whereas
Exactly.
that's our truth, but it may not be the truth. And
Yeah.
by doing constellations work, it allows us to like expand,
Yeah.
okay, beyond our own individual story, what else might be happening, which is really rich and empowering, give you the different perspective and understanding.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's just such beautiful work that empowers people to step into their own life in a way that I've never seen and felt before. Um, so yeah, is it something that you use still a lot? Like, how do you work with people? Is family constellation your base of working with people? Can you tell me a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, great question. So there's the two main ways that I work, and is that I do a 1 day workshop once a month. So
Mhm.
I'm based in Liverpool in the UK, and so I've got access to an amazing space in Liverpool. It's called the Baltic Ventures, and it's actually going back to what I was talking about before. It's a space where entrepreneurs come and
Mhm.
build capability and learn. And so to have access to that space, massive respect to the CEO Claire Lewis for letting me use that space. So I do 1 day workshops there once a month. And I'm finding it's really interesting. A lot of people are approaching me to do one-to-one work.
Yeah.
And I was initially a bit resistant to it because I love being and holding space and facilitating groups. And so, like with the groups, typically I get like 8 to 10 people come, but it's mainly one to one, and that's starting to really build. And it's like what I'm finding is that there's people like to have the opportunity to feel into the work on a one-to-one basis, because it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't know what this is, and
Yeah.
like going back to the family system. Within a family system, there's loyalties that we have
Mhm.
to the family system where we don't like, not that, yeah, maybe secrets, but like they don't expose the family system through maybe shame or being ridiculed or guilt. So they like to do it on a one-to-one basis first, feel it, and then they progress
Yeah.
into the workshop. But it's profound, like on a one-to-one basis. Like in a workshop, we're using obviously people to act as representatives for family members, which we can maybe talk a bit more on. But like in a one-to-one basis, you were saying like using visualization, tuning into the body, the shifts that people have because everything's within them.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. And so like I'm feeling really motivated to do more of that. And I do both online and in person. I've got a clinic now in Liverpool where I'm doing face to face, and yeah, it's unreal.
Yeah.
Some of the results and outcomes and the shift.
Yeah.
But how about you? What's your methods of working?
I also work one-on-one with people. It's funny you say that because we obviously started in group work because of the training that we did. The first constellation I did was in a group of 15 people. That was the first time that I stepped into the work, the first time that I did a constellation. So for me, it was so normal to do this as a group, and only after that explore the one-to-one. And I do really appreciate that for people, it is a big step to maybe step into a group workshop, and to be surrounded by lots of people that you don't know and expose yourself and come with whatever you're going through and yeah, and work on that while there are others present. So I do both. And I also see the same thing that people ask for a lot of one-on-one before they would come to one of our workshops, for example. So I work one-on-one with people online mostly because, we just moved to the north of Spain. So whoever is in Spain is welcome to my practice, but mostly online. And the group work is something that I'm working on right now. I have 2 retreats lined up, so family constellations and yoga retreats. One in the 9th till 11th of May in the south of Spain between Alicante and Valencia, and another one in September, which is a deep dive. So it's like 5 days. So it's not a weekend retreat. It's 5-6 days that we're together with movement. So because that is what our body needs. We need to move. We need to stretch. We need to release all those emotions. So yoga really helps with that. Could help with that for some people. And through the movement and through being in a space, a retreat space, things might come up. You might come with an intention. And through group work and family constellations, we work through those questions that you might have. And people bring everything from work-related questions to relationships to specific family issues, physical symptoms. So I'm not shying away from anything that people bring to me, because I know that ultimately it all comes back to you, what's in your body and what's in your system. And so those are the main things that I do right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Just for the benefit of the people listening, following this post, there'll be some links. That'll be maybe in the comments below, that'll link to some of the retreats that are happening in Spain with Annie. What's present for me there as you're talking is when we're doing constellations work, it's important to understand that we're working. I feel predominantly, and the clue is in the word feel, we're working somatically, which means with the body. Because you were talking about like when you're doing like using yoga and to move on emotions, and there's different other practices like somatic experiencing, which is developed by Peter Levine, like the importance of that. And because we live in a, how do I want to say this? My view and my perception is that we operate in a society in the West, maybe other places, but I can maybe say in the West, that's perpetuated by the head, by the mind, by thinking, and often there's not an opportunity to work with the intelligence of the body, which is with the feelings and where the emotions and the trauma lives. And that's a big part of family constellations work for me, is working with that intelligence of the body. And it's when I come to the end of a 1-day workshop that I facilitated, people are so in the body. And it's like, I find that like when people leave the workshop, they're very attuned to their environment, emotionally, to other people. Dare I say it, synchronicities happen, after like really interesting like unfoldments happen once they leave, and strange things start to happen because it's almost like it's like I don't know, a massive injection of meditation, of like, it's like doing a month of meditation in 1 day. It's just like one of the
we're more here for it.
more present. So what's your view on that? Because it's and it goes back to like, I think it's something you touched at the beginning. Like for me, it's become almost like constellations. It's like my spiritual practice and how I approach each day. And it brings just a lot of presence to me day, and just feel so much more connected. Like I'm interested to get your perspective on that.
Yeah. The embodiment and the being here. I feel that
Yeah.
when I work with people, oftentimes people are really great at talking. They're great at talking about their emotions. They're great at talking about everything that's going on and everything that they need to do and all the opinions that they have about other people and about their mother and about their father. And that's where that happens here. Right? It happens here. And what we do is we bring people down. We say, okay, what's happening in your body when you talk about your mom? What's happening for you when we talk about your dad? Like, where do you feel excitement? Where do you feel pain? Where do you feel that contraction? And that's where we go into, because oftentimes the emotions that we feel in daily life are child parts that are frozen. They're frozen in time. It's stuff from childhood. It's stuff from back in the days where your parents told you, don't cry. Don't be angry. Count to 10. Nothing happened to you. You're fine. Let's move on. All those micro moments from childhood the moment that these emotions at that point are not being released or not being present, or you are not being seen for who you are as a child, it's stored somewhere in the body. So at a later moment in life, when I ask you, so what happened when you got that new job? And your dad said, well, but that's not enough money that you got for that job. You should work harder, or you should find a different job. What happens when your dad says that? Is that something from childhood that is maybe frozen in time? Or when your mom looks at you funny, or you have a conversation with your mom, like, I think she meant something else than what she actually said. It is because there's something in your body that resonates with that pain that is still there, that might be from childhood. So it's not about the story that we have here, that we live in daily life, about what your dad said, what your mom said, what your brother said, what your manager did. No, it's about what does it do in our bodies, and where can we go back in time and release that pattern that has been going on probably most of your life. And can we see that that's for you to release, or is it something that happened back in the days to your ancestors, to your parents, to your grandparents, and they passed down a pattern of anxiety, worry, fear, anger issues, abuse, alcoholism, whatever it is that now is affecting you in daily life. And that comes up the moment I ask you how you're doing. So it's this whole journey that we go on with someone in order to connect them back to themselves and the feelings that are going on in their bodies. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Yeah, the way you articulate that is very clear. Like, and I want to build on that. And there's a couple of things that you've said that are really, really important. Well, one's well, that's all important, but there's one particular bit, and then I'm going to come back to the ancestral part.
Yeah.
So, for people who are listening who've never maybe engaged in this way before, and it goes back to why people maybe want to engage one-to-one first, is that to drop into the body, there needs to be vulnerability. And to be vulnerable, like often you need to feel safe to be able to drop into that. And a big part of that is, like, we know when we've done our training or we've been group work, I mean, as both as facilitators, our ongoing personal development, we do a lot of constellations as participants, is that I see it in a group, but I see it in one-to-one, but it seems more powerful in a group for some reason, but it's to be seen and to be witnessed.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean by that is, if you're in a circle of people, and then people listening might have done group process work, but if you've got 10, 15 people and you're in a circle and you feel safe, you feel like you're in a strong container to being well held by a facilitator like me or you, it allows people to drop in, and there's a magic in being able to share something very deep and for it to be seen and it to be witnessed and to be validated
Mm-hmm.
with non-judgment by another person, and it just allows the emotion to complete itself.
Yeah.
And it's an incredibly powerful process. But like a lot of people who I speak to who ask me about, who are curious about my work, it's like, oh, Neil, I can't go there, I'm not sure. But then over time, once they become a little bit more familiar with constellations and the family and the system and what it is, slowly they start to come. But it's more common for people to be scared of it.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure why that is. I mean, because it can be quite painful, dropping into that space, but ultimately it leads to massive transformation.
Yeah. Yeah.
The second part of it is the ancestral work, because this is a concept that's quite alien to a lot of people in the West. But if you speak to someone maybe in the island, a bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you're speaking to more indigenous traditions, it's in Africa, like Australia, like Maori in New Zealand, or Native American, there's a natural connection to ancestors.
Yeah.
And that those ancestral energies getting passed down, and like the experience of our ancestors, that might be our great great grandfather, we can still feel that. And I just want to give a quick example, and I'll pass over to you. Is that I've done some work like where people whose ancestors are Irish. So my ancestors are Irish in Liverpool, where I live.
Mm-hmm.
There was obviously a great famine in the mid 18th century, and about 1.5 million Irish came through Liverpool, where I settled. And I've done some work with a woman recently, and we were able to, through the work, through the method, step back into her great grandparents. And when she stepped back into that great grandparent, from nowhere, emotion, bang, just waves just came through it. Wait, where's that coming from? That's almost like magic. And
Yeah.
she was able to get a resolution in a current situation because of being able to tap into something where her ancestors had to leave their ancestral land and emigrate because of like just desperation and survival. But she was still carrying that. And yeah, it's remarkable work. So yeah, over to you. I mean, what's been your experience of that? Because it can be quite out there for a few people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Um, it's making it simple for people. I think we can talk, and we can dive deep, and that is what oftentimes happens. Obviously, over time, when you work more in a specific field, you deepen. But I try to keep it simple for people to just bring it back to your own family. Look at what your parents have been through. Have your parents moved countries? Have your parents um, suffered any great loss? Did your dad lose his job when your mom was pregnant with you? They're all events that have great impact. It has impact on our lives. I just moved countries with my whole family. It had an intense impact on my life. And I am sure that also had impact on my children's lives. First of all, because they moved countries, but also because of the stress that I was in and maybe the less ability that I had to hold them in their emotions the moment that they went through something because I was busy and I was stressed. So already those almost micro moments where normally, maybe our parents' generation would say, it's nothing, it's part of life. Well, it's part of life, and we need to create space for all these emotions that come up. When when your kid falls and they're in pain, to acknowledge that pain and to say it's okay that you're in pain, it's okay that it was scary that you fall. Yeah, because you're small and you don't know what's going to happen when you fall and when you have pain. So let it out, cry or rage, be angry. All those kind of things are really new to this generation of the world, it seems. But we're waking up to it. And through family constellations, we can look at all these kind of micro moments in life where you feel, oh, that should have been validated more when I was a child, because it's still somewhere in my body. And sorry, I feel like I'm just going on a going on a
You keep
babble
going. No,
about
it's
this,
it's it's all relevant.
but it feels really important that is the basics of the work for me. And it's not always going deep into, okay, there was war in your system and there was famine in your system. Yes, it's valid and it can have an impact. But for the people that I work with, oftentimes we begin really small. And we see that in constellations. You begin with something really small. What's going on for you right now? I would ask you, if you were my client, I would ask you, so Neil, what's present for you now? What's going on? And you would say, oh, well, I feel a bit this and that. I had a busy morning. Yeah, I'm a bit stressed about what I'm going to do. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to travel. And then we would drop down. So, okay, what's going on in your body? What's happening? Is there any pattern that we see? Is this familiar for you? Is this how it always was at home? Were you always stressed before you would travel? And we would go deeper and deeper and deeper. And sometimes that leads back to history of great grandparents. So they're always there. They're always part of us, because you won't be here without your great without any of your ancestors, obviously. But in the work, it's there are two different ways of approaching it almost, I feel, and they're both really important.
Yeah, as you're talking, it's like Bert Hellinger, who developed family constellations. Like there's actually a book called "Acknowledging What Is."
Yeah.
So it's acknowledging what is in the situation, like you say, keeping it simple. And I just want to mention this because I did a session with you, and it was a remarkable session because, like you say, we kept it very simple, but there was very little talking. There was just a little bit of questioning and feeling, and the depths that was able to go into through the permission and the space that you held so beautifully. And again, just saying, it wasn't like it's not like you're going to a psychotherapist or a counselor with a lot of talking, just questions, reflection, and then being able to drop deeper into that, like the emotion of something. And it's really simple,
Yeah.
but really profound. Like it's
Yeah.
really interesting. Yeah.
And you came to me with a work-related question, and
Yeah.
I remember, and that is what I wanna. That is what I feel is my gift to the world. That even in hitting your sales quota, even in that group project, even in the weekly meeting with your manager, whatever you're going through there is something emotional at the moment that there is a block, or you feel that you're stuck, or you feel that something's not flowing, or you feel that there is this in a relationship with someone. There is always something emotional behind it, and that is the root. It's not a practical 5-step on how to communicate better. It is not 6 months of business coaching in order to create a business plan and then move forward because you're stuck in creating a business plan. It's not that. There is something inside your body, something that has happened to you that might be big or small, that might be really deep or not so deep, that we can work with, and it can help you to become more aware of what is going on in your system, and it can make you acknowledge what is in your system, and from that moment move forward.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So powerful. It's something to be experienced. Like, it really is something to be experienced.
Yeah.
It's been a life-changing experience for both of us. And I just want, like, building on what you're saying, because I want to start to bring this to a close now, the conversation. And for you, like, what would, like, someone who wants to work with Annie, like, what does that person look like? Like, you've touched on it already, but like, someone listening to this, they wanted to work with you. Like, how would they know? Like, who would they be? Like, where would they be? Like, are they corporate? Are they stay-at-home mom? Like, give me a sense of what that looks like.
Yeah, I like this question. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter where you work. It doesn't matter whether you work. It doesn't matter whether you're a mom or a dad, you're stay at home, or you're busy running around like a headless chicken. The people that I work with are people who are becoming slowly aware of the fact that there is more in life than what they're doing. People who are like, okay, there's some parts in my life where I keep bumping into the same issues. I know that there's something deeper in order to solve them, but I don't know how, and I don't know what. And that might be work related, like I mentioned. It might be definitely in relationships. So relationships with your partner, something that I feel really passionate about, because partners are the ultimate gateway to figuring out what's going on in your system. They're the perfect mirror for you. Communication with kids as well, your own kids, also perfect mirror for what's going on for you in your system and what is not being dealt with. So yeah, relationships, life changes. It can be anything, but they're the people that say, wow, I feel that, I know that I'm emotional, I just don't know what to do with them, and I feel that there's something stuck and it blocks me from moving forward in this part of life. And that's where I grab people. That's where we talk, we sit, and that's where we do the work. Yeah. And it makes me incredibly happy that I can do that. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for all the things I'm doing.
Yeah, well, just
And
it's like a mirror. Like, you've used that word a few times. It's like if I could say about you specifically, you are a great mirror. You hold up a great mirror for people to be able to see themselves, and it's really one of your strengths, and holding that reflection up.
Yeah. Thanks,
And
Neil.
that's the job of a great facilitator, because
I think so.
the answers are in the individual,
Exactly.
but they only see one way. So you
Ultimately,
can
we don't do a lot. We're just there to witness. I think that witnessing is very important. What you mentioned as well.
absolutely.
And what about you? Back to you.
Yeah, back to me. So what's really present for me right now, and it has been probably say since early 2020 24. I watched a YouTube video. It was a 3-hour video. It was quite big, and it was an amazing guy called Daniel Schmachtenberger, and he's like one of the best thinkers, modern thinkers that I've ever come across. And he's got this concept that he talks about. It's called the meta crisis, and the meta crisis is like all these different intersecting challenges and issues that we're facing systemically as a human race. But it's just
Mm-hmm.
it's the environment, like mental health, the economy, and we're going into territory that's quite challenging. And one of the things that I really took from that is like, what can we do as individuals to bring an awareness to how we play our part in this, and how we can, through doing the work on ourselves, we become more aware, and through becoming more aware, we become more responsible human beings, and can make a difference in terms of like building community, like how we contribute to climate change, if that's something that you believe in, like how we can belonging, like really connecting back into families, because we're living in the West. I feel like as in a culture of the individual,
Yeah,
and like traditional values have gone. But like it's so this work is my activism. So that it's informing that, because when you do the work on yourself through constellations, you become more aware, and you become more connected to your body and to your feelings. When you become more connected to your feelings, you see something, maybe you see something in the media or something happens in your family, and you can respond, you can really feel it. It almost like by default, there's more of a motivation to change it. And so that's a big part of my work. So it's building on what you've said, because it's the same, but that's a specific application. And I've got a real sort of passion now about working with people who are um, visionaries, like emerging leaders. Like I'm seeing a lot of like sort of like 20-year-olds, like 30, early 30-year-olds who are waking up,
mm-hmm.
seeing what's happening and want to make a difference, but don't know how, but aware that they're getting, they've got these issues from like the childhood that they want to work through, that's getting in the way of them really stepping up.
Exactly.
And entrepreneurs are part of that, so that's where I'm at, but I'm feeling really motivated. I'm passionate to do that work. Feels like the times now. It's really present for me. So that's where I'm working at. But I won't say no to anybody. But that's my focus for my work.
Exactly. Yeah. Beautiful.
Okay.
And where can we find you, Neil? How can we
Yeah.
find more about you?
So you can find me at my website. So neilmeekin.com,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see a bit more about me there. But I'm most active on LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
and Instagram. So I post a lot of
Yeah.
content, especially on Instagram, around family constellations, like activism, around what you can do about stepping up, like looking in the mirror, being aware of patterns, relationships, or many, many different things. So that's where you can find me. And like I say, I do workshops once a month, and so all those details will be on Instagram. And yeah, just reach out to me if you want to do any one-to-one work. And I do a free 15-minute discovery call, just to sort of get a sense of whether we can work together or not. So yeah,
Yeah.
so that's me. What about you, Annie?
Same setup, I think. I invite people to connect with me, to send me a WhatsApp, to message me on LinkedIn, to book a session just to see for a match, because I know it's really important for people to feel safe and to feel that they match with someone before you start working with someone. So people are invited to do that. And then you can find me on LinkedIn mostly. It's where I post my content. Also on Instagram, the same. And I have my link tree that we'll put in the comments, I guess, of the podcast. And then people can find me there. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Annie. So yeah, there you can find all these details in the comments below. And I just want to say, Annie, we've tried to keep it as high level as possible, but it's still being rich and give people a bit of a taste. And
Yeah.
maybe in the future, as we continue to bring the work to the world, that we can do this again. But
Yeah.
maybe focus on some specific themes that we can go and do a deeper
Yeah.
dive into, like
Yeah.
you said, about relationships, like team dynamics, like the roots, the father, the
Exactly.
mother.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're up for that, I'd be definitely up for that
Will
in
be
the
lovely.
future. Yeah,
Amazing.
awesome.
Thanks,
Okay,
Neil.
well, thanks, Annie. Great to speak to you. And
Yeah.
yeah, we'll maybe see you all
Likewise.
again for a future episode of Neil and Annie. So yeah, take care, everybody. All the best.